No, not at the best part. This is what happens when you order a projector off of Wish. Wait a minute. Hey everyone, and welcome to Groove Builders, the show where we create together. I'm your host, Disorderly Cone, and in this episode, we're going to be building a movie projector to replace the one that just broke. But when it comes to these kinds of models, we have a couple of questions that we have to ask ourselves, like what kind of metal is inside of the box? What kind of tools do we need to build a movie projector? And will this model even go together? These are great questions, and we're going to get the answers. Let's get down to the workbench and open up our package. And boom, just like that, we begin building our movie projector. And to be totally honest, I thought there were going to be more parts inside of this kit, especially because of how big the box was. But no, they're just kind of bigger pieces than normal. Before we get too far along, we should really talk about a few things, and the first thing we're going to talk about is these instructions up here. These guys have a diagram that tell us where all of our parts are throughout this build. All we need to do is cut those out, and once we cut them out, we're going to shape them to the instructions. Once they're properly shaped, we'll attach these pieces together by taking the tabs and putting them through the insertion holes. Once the tabs are through the insertion holes, we're going to either bend or twist them depending on what the instructions say. With this kit here, they have these little circles that kind of tell you what's going on, and to be totally honest, they're kind of hard to read. So for the most part, we're going to do our own thing. But there are a few pieces throughout this build where you need to follow the instructions, and that's because if you don't, the tabs will actually get in the way of the parts coming together. Yeah, asking me how I know that. The next thing we should talk about is our tools, and for this particular build, there are a few things I'm going to recommend. Starting out with our nippers. These are great for cutting out all of our pieces and ensuring that we have as little leftover metal on the part as possible. These little bits of leftover metal are called burrs, and they actually get in the way of our pieces coming together nice and, smoothly. Now that being said, you really do want to make sure that these are really clean, and if you do have any leftover metal, just kind of give it a little cut. It is worth it. Otherwise, you'll have all the parts kind of crooked and just really won't work out well. The next tool I'm going to recommend is a pair of pliers. These are great for shaping all of our pieces and, of course, getting our tabs as well. The reason why I like these ones is because they're very small, they come to a good point, and there's no teeth inside to damage any of our parts. That is super important. If you're going to be using pliers, make sure there's no teeth inside, because otherwise when you clamp them down, they'll actually mark up the parts, and that's no bueno. So just make sure you double check those before you use them. The next thing I'm going to recommend is a traditional pair of tweezers. These are great for shaping the majority of our pieces, and they come in a wide variety of different choices for us to be able to shape them with. Now, another thing is that most people use the tips here when it comes to shaping our pieces, but what I personally like is using the center here because it kind of acts as a break for us to be able to bend some of the longer pieces. So again, when you're using tools, sometimes look for different ways to use them with these kits. Like our tweezers here, they can have multiple functions. And finally, the last tool I'm going to recommend is a dapping punch. These are great for shaping our domed pieces and also cylinder pieces as well. We really only use this once throughout the entire build, and you really don't even need it, but they do come in handy. And if you don't have one of these at home, using a bigger marker or even a spoon can get you a similar result. Now, these are just our recommendations, and you really don't need anything but nippers and tweezers to get the job done. But of course, having these extra tools will make your life a lot easier. All right, we've talked tools, we've looked at our instructions. There's only one thing left for you to do, and that's to press that like button. Don't worry, I'll pause the video. Oh, you didn't want me to pause the video? Oh, well, no worries. Just press that like button. We'll just press play again. No worries. Press it. Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. That's a really good way for us to be able to fight this YouTube algorithm and get to more people. And it also tells me how well we're doing. Well, thank you so much. Let's get back into the build. Okay, I know I'm back kind of quickly, and that's because we need to talk about that lens right there. This is actually a pretty easy part to bend. The only thing we need to do is get a nice little dome shape on there. And I thought there was going to be a lot more domage, if you will, to this piece, but in reality, it's quite flat. So all we're going to do is either use our dapping punch or our tweezers or pliers, and we'll go around to one leaf at a time and ensure that the borders match up. If they match up, you know you've bent enough of that piece. And if you trust that with every single leaf, you'll have a really nice dome by the end. The thing that we need to know though, if you're going to use another tool and you put too much of a dome on it, it won't fit in place. And I know you think, okay, well that's a big piece that has a lot of perforations in it and you think it's going to be a bigger dome. No, it's actually quite flat. So don't worry about overshaping this particular piece. The same thing can be said with our boxes here. They kind of look complicated and I know they don't necessarily look like boxes, but believe me, they are boxes. All we're going to do is ensure that all of our edges match up, and as long as they do, everything should fit into place, allowing you to make a good connection. Now, because it's on the outside, we want to make sure that these little tabs are either invisible or they're going to be laying flat against the model. All of the tabs that we've ran into on this build so far haven't really been of any concern, and the only reason why we're bending these ones flat on the outside is purely for aesthetics. If you want to twist them, go ahead and do that. They just will kind of stick out on your build. Okay, the tripod. Now this part here has a couple of tricky bits in it, and the first thing we're gonna address is those legs. Now, what I did was go ahead and pre-assemble these guys. I thought, okay, I'll just line it up to the bottom and everything should work out. And I thought they would. But once I assembled them all together and then went to attach them to the tripod, I realized that one of my legs was the wrong way. This is not a big deal. All we gotta do is take off the foot on the bottom, switch it to the other side, and Bob's your uncle. But we are going to be playing with those little tabs, and if you've already bent them down, unbending them and then bending them back can make them super weak. So if you do make a mistake here, just be careful undoing the tabs. And if you want to be even more careful, line up all the pieces first, ensure that they're in the right correlation to each other and where they're supposed to be, and then put them together. And that will save you unbending anything. The next part that we need to worry about is actually where this is going to go together. And this is where I meant that we need to ensure that any tabs that we're dealing with here, we really want to put them flat on the inside of the tripod, including those legs there. We just want to make sure everything is nice and flat so that when we put the top the top projector on top of the tripod, we're not going to have any issues with it coming together. Those tabs can be quite tall sometimes. These little knobby thingies. Okay, now when I look at the instructions here, these guys look like little diamond kind of hexagonal things to me, and you want to kind of make them, you know, diamond shape all the way down and then attach them on. When I went to go place them onto that piece there, yeah, it didn't really work out, and that's because it's too much bending had happened. What the reality of this shape is you want to get a nice kind of diamond hexagonal shape on top, and then the bottom part is completely cylindrical. And it doesn't look like that on the instructions. It's a little bit confusing. So if you're hearing this now and you're building this model and you're about to do all the work to get that to the proper shape that you think it's supposed to be, yeah, don't put it in the legwork. Doesn't need to be done. These guys go in quite simply once we've shaped the tops. How annoying. Finally our reels. Now these aren't too difficult to put together, but we do need to ensure that all the circles line up. If you just kind of put them on all willy-nilly, you'll notice that the circles are out of alignment, and this might annoy you if you're like me and have kind of a little bit of OCD. Yeah, don't do that. Ensure that they're all completely lined up first and then attach them together. Don't be me and have to, undo things. Silly goose. And boom, there we have it, our cinema projector all completed. And yeah, while you were gone, I did some moving around of things, but we're not done yet. There's gonna be a lot of changes in the near future, and the background's gonna be one of them. Getting back to this model though, it was actually quite simple to put together. There really isn't a whole lot here to be worried about for new metal model builders out there. But the lens can be a little tricky to get in the proper portions. And of course, if you don't follow the instructions, these little knobby bits here in the back can be a real pain in the butt. They look 3D, but they're really not. They're just kind of bent down, and when all the pedals match up, you just kind of push them in place. Outside of those two things, really, this model almost puts together itself. Yeah, the tripod can also be a tricky bit. Okay, so it doesn't put itself together, but I will say, outside of those three things, this model is quite simple to put together. It really is just a matter of slowing down, taking another look at the instructions, and ensuring that everything is in the proper orientation before securing it. And that also comes to these little wheels here. These wheels look great when they're done, but if you don't put them on in the proper way, they'll actually be out of sync, so it kind of looks a little strange. Don't do that. Take your time, light it up, or else my OCD, when I see it online, will go absolutely insane. And instead of getting a cool thumbs up or a fire emoji, you're gonna get a frowny emoji. Yeah, maybe I should not say that. Getting back to this though, if you're new to 3D metal model building, I would highly recommend building this guy up. It looks great when it's complete, and especially if you're a cinematography fan, this is a cool one to add to your collection. And I think that if you build it, you won't be disappointed. All right, Groovers, that brings us to the end of our episode, and I'm really excited to have you guys all here for the near future. We got all kinds of neat changes happening, and I want to have you there, so make sure you press that subscribe button. If you like the video, go ahead and press like too. But before you go, I just want to say, first of all, Merry Christmas. Sorry I didn't post a whole lot of videos over the last month and a bit. It's just because of some major life changes that have happened, and I have to kind of get myself into a groove before I can kind of, start posting things more on a regular basis again. But that being said, these changes are for the best possible, most awesome reason I could ever imagine. So you guys are going to be seeing me in a whole new way, and I'm curious to see how that's going to go with the future of Groove Builders, especially with what we're going to be able to do. I'm not going to get too much away, but hopefully I'm going to be able to get out and see you guys in the near future, which I know that sounds crazy right now, but I hope it will make sense when I can actually speak a little bit more about things. And yes, we're going to be changing all of the background. This is just the start of it. I got to figure out how to put my models up. I have a couple of ideas about how I'm going to go about it, but I think that it's going to look really neat when we're done. Anyway, Groovers, I hope you're having a happy holidays, happy new year, and until next time, keep building.